Cool, cool. Hey, all right. Alex, we're live, man. How you doing?
Hey, man. Good, Ben. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, man. I keep seeing you like in the news, but I don't like see you like in real life, so it's kind of nice to see you, man.
Yeah, man. It was good the other day. You caught me traveling. You went live. Was great to hear your take of things, and now you definitely are killing it on this breaking news.
Well, we're trying to break news, and you keep giving us news to break. So I appreciate that. It's we're live now. We're gonna wait for some people to kind of trickle in here and get a little audience built up here. So let's do that for a moment and just kind of wait for that to happen. Where in the world are you? I know you travel a lot.
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco in our HQ here. So
okay.
Yeah.
You got some? You got any travel coming up soon?
Yeah, I'm going out to Singapore tomorrow, and then off to Hong Kong, and then back. We're kind of, doing the first leg of this road tour with Peggy and Daniela. I'm going to tag along.
Nice. Okay, cool. Try not to get in the way.
Yeah, basically carry heavy stuff and post some stuff on Instagram. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Awesome.
I've successfully replaced myself now. So
hey, you know what? That's the dream right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So getting some people filing in there. Kelly Gurin says hi, Ben and Alex.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. Leave some comments, guys. Let us know you're there. All right. All right. Let us know you're there. Let us know you can hear us. Let us know the video is working well. All right. We're all good there. This is still beta. LinkedIn Live is still in beta, so I'm blaming everything on Microsoft if it doesn't work. So that's how that goes. But yeah, man. Well, thanks for making the time, and we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of hop right in. Huge news this week. Huge news that fortunately I kind of on the cutting. I wasn't the first person to break it, but I was kind of on the cutting edge. And as you kind of mentioned before, I was able to get some of my thoughts, but, I'm really happy that you're here to kind of tell us what's going on and kind of give us like a behind the scenes, very interested to learn. I'm very interested I want all the people that are watching this to kind of hear the Shyft story if they're not familiar with the company and kind of your story and what you've done. Cause I think it's really interesting. It's impressive. And then I want to talk a little bit about, where you see your company going, where you see the industry as a whole going, because I think your company kind of grows out of opportunities that are out there and stuff, and maybe gaps. Let's say hi to a few more people real quick before we get started. Lori Murphy, hi from Lori. Hey, Lori. Kathy Momberger, hi, gentlemen. Look forward to this discussion. Hosea, hello, guys. All right, keep leaving them. There you go.
Hey, Kathy.
Yeah, cool. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about you, Alex, kind of your journey in mobility? I think that's always interesting to hear about. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ben, thanks. First of all, thanks for putting this on. I think you talk about filling gaps. This industry needed this podcast to come out, and so it's filling a huge gap for us because one of the things I do believe in is getting out there and telling your story. And so thanks for the opportunity and having me today.
Thank you.
My background is I grew up in West Virginia in a steel town in, just outside Pittsburgh. My family owned a hardware and furniture store for 3 generations. So I got a little taste of the moving industry from a very early age and was around, warehouses and trucks and with my uncle and my dad, and really kind of just got a good background in understanding, blue collar workers and industry and just kind of the backbone of this country. And needless to say, I got out of West Virginia as fast as I could. It wasn't a thriving economy. It was an economy on the downturn.
Right.
And I went to I got into NYU, and first summer that I was there, I met a couple guys that were working in the moving industry and convinced me to take a summertime job. And the next thing you know, I'm driving trucks all over the Eastern Seaboard, and had made the decision to drop out of school and pursue a career in this industry. My dad was thrilled. But there was something that really touched me about this industry from a very early stage, and I think it's really shaped the way that my views and beliefs about how important it is, and it's something that's kept me in it for a really long time. So in my 20s, I started a company. I got into international freight forwarding. I eventually sold that business and went to work for Wheaton Van Lines. First started out with a small agent in Tucson, Arizona. Shout out to Desert Sun Moving and Storage. Bunch of folks are still there. Yeah. And within a couple months of being there, I had this client. So I was coming from a transitional time in the moving industry where it was going from the yellow pages to internet leads. And in New York, it was a cutthroat market where, if you didn't call that lead within a couple seconds, it was dead. And so when I went out to Arizona, I saw right away there was an opportunity to kind of use some of those skills and bring that kind of customer side to Wheaton and Desert Sun. And lo and behold, I ran into a customer that was moving with Oracle. And Ben, you probably know this happens quite often when you're out doing outside sales. Yeah. You turn from a salesperson to almost a family friend pretty quickly. Right. And so about 3 weeks later, after I booked the job, the guy calls me and he says, "Hey, I'm really sorry, Alex. My company uses Cardis." And I'm like, "Who's Cardis?" Right. Look them up. and literally, I'm telling the real deal right here. Right. I literally cold call Cardis, and I get Steve Braun on the phone.
Oh, really?
The supply chain manager. And I'm like, "Hey, Steve, I'm Alex. There's this move that you guys took from me.
I want my commission."
Yeah. Like, let me do that move. He's like, "Oh, he's like, actually, we just picked up Customs and Border Patrol, and this is like 2007 when there was a lot of movement towards the border, and we're ramping up supply in New Mexico, Arizona. So why don't you come on out?" And so, next thing you know, I'm out in Danbury. And I don't know if you know Steve, but he was an amazing supply chain guy. And he really, really schooled me around how to deliver a quality experience and got me into that era of Cardis methodology. And
what year was that? 2007, you're saying?
2007, 2008, yeah.
Yep. So that's funny you say that, right? Because my story is I cold called Cardis also and got a meeting and got the business, but it was with Ken Roper and Dave Fleury. Okay. And it was probably a few years after what you're talking about. Actually, mine was with a postcard. I sent them a postcard and I got a meeting and it turned into $5 million of business in 2 years.
I mean, totally changed my life to be totally fair. Dave was there as well. And those guys at the time were really talking about, hey, look, we're going to teach you best practices for doing Cardis business. And those best practices are going to help you within your other business. And I bought into it hard, and Wheaton at the time really wanted to move away from the military and diversify. So I kind of became a little bit of a poster child for the van line and had a lot of, I had a lot of executive sponsorship to move mountains inside Wheaton to work that. And we won a quality award in 2008 and eventually won a gold award. And that became a huge line of business for Wheaton. So a couple years into that, we acquired Beacons. And I think it was during that time period where I really started to see that the customer was changing. And, we were preaching in the home. And I'm up there on stage talking to agents about being in the home, and I'm not even believing it. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that's the last thing customers want. They don't want you in the home. And why don't we try to figure out a better way? You got to remember back then, cell phones and Wi-Fi, it wasn't the day, was a very different time period.
Well, that was before, when did the iPhone come out? Like in 2009 or 10, something like that? Mm-hmm. So that was even pre-iPhone. So forget FaceTime and forget some of these other tools, right?
And somebody reminded me, I don't know if you remember iPhone 1, it was really crappy at making phone calls. Yeah. So the tech didn't work back then as well. But kind of, I had spent 5 years at the van line, and I had learned a lot from that. And I had a great experience with Wheaton. You can't say enough about them. just as an organization with really looking at things long term. So I had a great experience there. And I really also learned how van lines work. I learned the inner workings of how shipments actually get moved and at a high level. So I moved on from Wheaton, and I took a job with MoveLine.
Yeah.
And so that was quite an experience, because that was my,
Yeah.
I had started a company before, but I had not been in a venture-backed startup before.
So that's, I think, that's where our paths first crossed. I think that's where I really met you for the first time. You and Eric Christensen was out, was at MoveLine, and I think we did a little business together back then. Tell people what that was about, what the concept was.
Yeah, so you got to, in MoveLine's day, that's when things were becoming on demand in marketplaces. There's a lot of businesses that were being built around that time. So MoveLine was trying to build Expedia or Travelocity for moving, straight B2C marketplace. And I read an article in Mashable about MoveLine, and I was pretty convinced from that article, and I didn't really do much due diligence. And when I got there wasn't a lot more than an idea. So we really, I built out the supply, I built the sales team. We got introduced to Tony Hsieh from Zappos, and decided to move the company to downtown Las Vegas so we could build out our operations there. And
which is where Zappos was headquartered. Zappos was headquartered in Vegas. Was there a relationship there with Zappos? Were they?
So Tony actually had invested in that business. He made a small investment, and he was really all about revitalizing downtown Las Vegas, because they had convinced Amazon to move their headquarters to downtown Las Vegas. So we kind of got swept up in that. We were the largest company they'd relocated to downtown Las Vegas. And a lot of the things that we got sold on didn't plan out as well as we thought, which probably contributed a little bit to MoveLine's ultimate demise. But in May of 2014, I had seen the handwriting on the wall, and I was like, there's a huge problem with this business model, because at heart, you're competing with the moving companies that you're asking to do the work. So there's this channel conflict where it's like, hey, come do jobs for MoveLine, but in the same way, you might have been getting those jobs if MoveLine didn't exist. And so that wasn't a really great business model. So I jetted and left. And 8 months later, MoveLine crashed. I think they then became One Move later, but I lost a little bit of track from that. And at that point in time, I really just started to see, hey, there's 8,000 moving companies in the US, and it's not going to make sense for 8,000 moving companies to build 8,000 apps, because we had started working with Skype and FaceTime and saw the limitations of those products just in general, just as it applies to doing a household goods survey. So I thought, there's this new technology that Google had released called WebRTC. It's probably powering this video chat, actually. And video is going to become ubiquitous, and it fits in so well with the moving process. And let's go ahead and build a software company. So in 2015, with a little bit of money and a lot of hope, Daniela and I, founded Crater, and we set out to build a video survey product. And by 2016, we really had it working on Android and iOS. We had built like the semblance of a system. You could call it algorithm. That might be a little bit more than what it was back then, but a way of taking that recorded video and predicting the volume and weight with a high degree of accuracy. And we started to sell that in the market. And I think we started really slowly with companies that we knew generally and had some trust built. But in April of 2016, we signed a deal with Russell Start from Pickfords in the UK. And that really kind of put us on the map in a lot of ways. It drove us internationally, and it really was the test case. So with Pickfords, what we were able to do in 6 months was help them to centralize all their sales in one office in London, because they were spread out in all these field offices. And within about 6 months after that, they started asking us to do surveys on nights and weekends. And that really we started to see this behavior, which was, when you centralize sales, you get more consistent sales, you get more consistent conversion rates, you can control the messaging. There's a bunch of efficiencies you start to pick up, because customers were getting more and more estimates, and the cost per sale was just too high.
Sure. So you get on board with Pickford's there, and that's kind of like your first kind of, big break there. And then, and you're currently, at that point you're Crater, and you have this thing called Survey Bot, right? That's what it was called back in the day. I remember that. Yeah. And what, like, kind of like flash forward a little bit for us here, what prompted that shift to the word Shyft, right? Where you did that rebrand. That was about 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Yeah. So if you look at adoption curves, they generally happen over a 5-year period. And so year 1, you get the early adopters, year 5, you get the late adopters. And so as we're building video survey as this new tool technology, we experienced our success was based on moving companies' ability to adopt it and the industry's ability to adopt it. And frankly, it was just slow. We'd spend a ton of effort training folks, and it just like they wouldn't do the surveys, or, it's just like they'd use us in the peak season, but they wouldn't use us in the off season. And it was really difficult to build a business around that. So we were looking at where can we expand? And, one path would have been to create a CRM for the moving industry, which there was plenty of CRMs out there. Yeah. And I think from my van line experience at Wheaton when we bought Beacons, right, we switched everyone's technology over. That was the first part of it. And knowing how difficult that is. And kind of also, if you look at Moveware, a lot of companies have gone to Moveware. I mean, their implementation, and it takes months. And it just was going to take a really, really long time for us to do that. And it's a complex product to build. So we were looking at, okay, we know it's not that, and we know it was more about what we knew it wasn't than less about what we knew it was. And really, I had met Eric Halverson a long time ago at Bay Area, BAM, and ERC. And Eric Halverson, if you don't know him, was a director of global mobility at eBay. So I run into him at a BAM show, and we start talking. And I tell him what, kind of where I was, and we just clicked, man. I guess just maybe where he was in his career and where we were. And he says, hey, look, we've got all these lump sum moves at eBay, and right now they're not getting any services, and we're committed to a great a great transferee experience because we need them up and running, and there's no product out there that delivers on that. Let's try something. Literally, let's try something. What could happen? Right. And within 2 months, when you look at, sometimes you run an experiment and you're like, you don't know whether the answer is, well, it's like kind of good, but it's not good. Man, with that 2 months into it, it was bananas. I mean, we were converting it like 35-40%, and going
which for a lot of people out there, typical conversion on lump sum is like 10%, maybe even less. Right. Yeah.
So, so they say, hey, you should talk to our RMC. We go to the RMC, and they say, wow, this is great. Here's 10 other clients. And so that kind of just started forming how we started approaching what we were doing. And what ultimately, from when I looked at it because I'm always thinking about things from the side of like, if I was a mover, how would I feel about this? If I was a driver, how would I feel about this? And I was like, this is actually really good, because these are opportunities that companies wouldn't see, or, I had a theory that people were underspending or overspending, and that was what was creating a lot of the pain. So it really felt like we had hit a sweet spot. And then when we had a positive relationship with the RMC and we were adding a ton of value, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then
So take me from that moment where, okay, you're having success with eBay, you're getting adoption, you're achieving conversion rates that are 3, 4, 5x better than, kind of benchmark conversion rates there. And you're like, okay, wow, this is actually working. People are buying this. So obviously it's adding value. The market has spoken. How do you go from scaling it from that one client like that to multiple, and then into RMCs, which is where you are now, where you're partnering with RMCs? How many RMCs are you partnering with? Kind of like, give me an idea of what that scale is today and how you kind of got there.
Yeah. So investors call this place in the business finding product market fit. And so they talk about two main things, like founder market fit and product market fit. So I've kind of always had founder market fit because I'm kind of don't know anything else. I dropped out of college. I mean, this is what I know. So I've always kind of had that. But product market fit is kind of the way I describe it. If you built something and it's not flying off the shelves and customers aren't saying I want it and it feels like an uphill battle, you do not have product market fit. Right. It's kind of like this combination. And once you get it, you just start to see things start happening. And so right off the bat, we were pretty convinced very early that this is where the future of the business was. And there was a couple things, and I'll try to give them in sequence. One was the customers. So the customers and the type of customers that we were working with, they wanted it really instant. Like they wanted it as fast as we could do it or faster than we could provide the answers. And so whenever there was a lag in that process, we would feel it and we would say, hey, let's build the ultimate experience. And so we kind of knew from the customer voice of transferee that we were headed in the right direction. The next thing was the RMCs, and the RMCs were basically saying, what we built isn't working, or they weren't saying that exactly, but you could read the language in the room, and they were willing to give it a try. So one after another, some of the biggest RMCs came to us and said, hey, let's do this. Let's try this out. And so when you start to see those kind of things happening, you're like, hey, this works really well.
What do you think it is that makes it such a great product market fit? Let's say from an RMC standpoint. Help me understand that product market fit. Why is it flying off the shelf?
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in RMCs. Luckily, Daniela spent 14 years working at Pru and has a ton of experience, and a couple other folks on the team. Elise Rorden was at New Compass for a number of years. So we had some insights into the RMC mindset. We approached it from day one from the perspective of, if we can add value that they don't currently have, if we can open up a new market, if we can create a new source of revenue from one that there isn't, then we've earned a seat at the table, and we can build a partnership. So I think that was really important. Also, some of the early partnerships, the people that run those businesses just have incredible integrity and were big supporters and knew that, like, they saw the future. They didn't necessarily know how to get there, but they had faith in us that we were going to try to make it happen. And so that was a really important part. You can't build a business like Shyft without a ton of partners and a true partnership. And so we were starting to see that happen. But I think the simple answer to your question, Ben, is, if you come to someone and say, what did you make? What did you generate from lump sums last year? And then you say, look, the responsibility is on us to generate 3x that, 5x that, whatever it is. Right. And it's also pretty easy to do a pilot, right?
Well, and let's be honest, right? I mean, if they're not doing anything with them today, and they're not having success with them today, and they're costing, lump sums are costing costing them more than they're making on them from the sheer time and effort it takes to try to address this population that doesn't actually end up buying the services. So it's like, let's carve this business out and kind of hand it over here to a partner that frankly is hungry, probably has a better has a much better go-to-market, solution for it. And has proven conversions of 3 to 5x. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other side of it was, which we knew that they were looking for. So the RMCs are looking for, home sale and home purchase. That's their bread and butter. That's what their core, a lot of their core competency is. So part of what Shyft is trying to understand what that buying behavior is and trying to extend that customer engagement. And so over time, we were actually able to generate housing leads and send those referrals back to the RMC. And so that's like a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, that's huge incremental value that they would have never seen before, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's really quick take a break here and look at a couple of people asking some questions, making some comments. Sean Spanek said, had a great call with a few members of your team today. Must be talking to you. Jason Sudo, hi guys. Francine Dresty, hi from St. Louis. Thanks for hosting this. Kathy and Kelly having some fun together. Thomas Canellan, hey Alex and Ben Cross, sup fellas? Hey Tommy Canoli. Greg Calvert, hello all. Roy Ramirez, hello everyone. Tracy Gunn, this is such a great platform. Thanks. Lori Murphy, what's the future of Shyft? We're going to get to that, Lori. Simon Mason, love the use of this video. Ben Cross, thank you, Simon. Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Cool, we got some great engagement going on here. So I want to ask you now. So we kind of gone through the history. We kind of gone through, okay, what's the state currently, and it's flying off the shelves, and that's awesome. And you're right. I mean, you know, you guys are white hot right now in the mobility space, lots of adoption. And then here this week, 2 huge announcements. First one, probably biggest one, the one that probably caught most people by surprise and was just like, whoa. Peggy Smith joined Shyft as the Chief Strategy Officer. How did that happen? I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's huge news. Tell me the story there.
So just to give a little background, you know, I founded the YP40 with Peggy. So we've been working together in some capacity for, you know, a decade now. This year is the 10th anniversary of the YP40.
Awesome.
So when you bring someone like Peggy into an organization, it's a huge thing. It's a huge change for both Shyft and for Peggy. And so there's a lot of comfort knowing that we've worked with each other. It's a known commodity. You know what you're getting on both sides of it. So that was the start of it. The second piece, I think, was how did it happen? Well, I mean, as soon as I heard that Peggy was on the market, I reached out. I mean, I don't even think I right to the phone and said, hey, let's talk. And you know, I did not go into that with, hey, this is great, let's do it, you know, but I became extremely convinced on every interaction. And we spent a lot of time thinking about what would this look like and where would she fit into the organization, and, you know, trying to make sure that we created a scenario where it could be mutually beneficial and successful for both of us. And as many people know, Peggy is a transformational leader, a pillar of this industry. And what was shocking, and I wrote a blog about it, there's some stuff on LinkedIn that I wrote, just some of my thoughts about it, is flat out, she thinks huge. She thinks bigger than I do. She has, you know, I think we dream big here at Shyft. Peggy breaks all the records. You know, second of all, I have a very, you know, Shyft has a very young workforce that is when we polled our people and said, why are you here? To learn. Number one reason. And so I've been obsessed with how do I put leaders in this organization that can teach this very young team, because they're obsessed with it. You know, I think they deserve to have great leadership around them. They deserve to have someone like Peggy around them. And when I saw that what she could bring to the organization, you know, you're not getting Peggy Smith, you're getting like, you know, you get 3 to 5x of that. So that was huge. And then I think the third part is that, and I wrote about this, is that Peggy and I have had arguments, like pretty heated ones at times, about how we look at things. But what's happened is we didn't turn that argument and say, you know what, I'm out. We turned that argument into a place for us to find a deeper solution or a better understanding. Or sometimes we just left and said, you know what, I don't agree with you, but we're still friends. And I think when you're building this kind of business, you have to be able to have leaders that check their ego at the door, that bring vulnerability to the front, and are going to say, hey, look, I'm not here for Peggy Smith. I'm not here for Alex Alpert. I'm here to actually do something that lasts, because we got enough of the other things in the world. And so those are the rationale.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you touched on some really cool things there. I mean, I think it's always great when you can have disagreements, you know, pretty, you know, significant disagreements sometimes, and work through them and come out with something usable and some solutions at the end. And even be okay sometimes with the ambiguity of just not agreeing. You know, I think that's a lesson that we don't have to agree on everything. And probably if we are agreeing on everything, we're probably not fully engaged in bringing all of our ideas to the table, because, you know, you just can't agree on everything. So, yeah.
I mean, she brings an authenticity that you just know there's no way that she's faking it. And that realness, I think, in today's world is something that we need. And there's going to be, yeah, you're right. We're white hot. We're riding the wave these days, but there's going to be challenging days for Shyft, and we're going to need that type of leadership here in the organization. And yeah, we're extremely fortunate to have her here.
Well, we got a question here. Lori Murphy asks, "What's the future of Shyft?"
Yeah, I mean, right now we've got, we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us, but the future of Shyft is to keep on partnering with our moving partners, to continue partnering with our RMC partners, and to execute on what we're doing. I know that's not the answer that probably everybody wants to hear, but the reality is you have a generational shift in the way that people are buying. And so companies today are faced with a major problem. Phone rings. It's a baby boomer. They want an email. They want phone calls. They want to know who the name of the person they're buying from. They want a bunch of touch points. And that's how the industry is set up. The next phone call rings, and it's a Gen Z. And the last thing they want is, first of all, they didn't call you. They went on your live chat.
They didn't even call you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they went on your live chat, and suddenly the company, the organization's faced with how do I service this client? And the problem is how do you do it back to back? So that would require your organization to identify who that customer is, how they want to be communicated to, and then serve up a different type of communication based on that persona. I think that's incredibly challenging. It involves a bunch of different technology and a very adept customer service staff. So yes,
yeah. I mean, that Gen Z customer comes on your live chat and they're like, "Hey, I'm moving from here to here. How much is it?" And you're like, "Well, wait. I mean, I need more information." They're like, "I got 2 bedrooms. How much is it?" And you're like, "Well, no, you don't understand. I have to come out there and I have to count it all, and then I have to go back to my computer, and then." Well, and then what they're going to do is they're going to call around until they find an answer to how much is it. And unfortunately, the people that are best at giving the answer, how much is it, are oftentimes online moving brokers who are fairly unscrupulous. I mean, that's just my experience, right?
Yeah, you mentioned that in your last call, and I thought you're spot on about it. You said 2/3, which who knows what the right percentage is, but yet the world of the Wild West of the internet is real.
Yeah.
So there's this problem about how do we deliver high touch customer service to different types of people, and so a lot of what Shyft spent a lot, those first 4 years of the business was not just doing video surveys. We built an entire call center and a custom built, omni communications platform. So it's phone, text, email, video, all under one hood, all with the ability to tag conversations, natural language processing, call distribution, all the sort of, centralized high volume calls scenarios, so that you can have multiple people reaching out to a customer thinks it's a single voice, or at least they're on the same page. So that's mission critical to dealing with today's kind of customer. The second thing is that customers today are bombarded with different apps to download, different logins. They got to get multiple vendors. I mean, so when you look at how does a customer today, how do you make relocation super simple? Well, you do like an enormous amount of research. Once you do it, then you collect all these estimates, varied estimates. Many of them are not apples to apples. So there's a good 60 to 80 hours of work that's done that goes into doing that. There's heavy stats that show that people are moving to urban areas. There's heavy stats that say that we have this bifurcation of the workforce where the top end of it is moving more. And those folks, if you don't give them what they want, pretty instantly will go and get it. And so when I say, what's the vision for Shyft? The vision for Shyft is trying to provide a really high touch, high tech solution to customers so that they can, be able to seamlessly relocate.
I got a question here from someone I think Rachel Fletcher. Ring a bell?
Rachel.
What do you see as Shyft's differentiator from a transferee experience perspective?
I mean, rad customer service right off the bat, and we stand behind it the whole way. I think one of the things that I grew up hearing a lot of in this industry was, to be great at the moving industry, you got to spend, your families had to be in it. You got to spend 20 years in it. I think we've proven with Shyft that if you have people that that if you select the right people on the front end, you provide the right kind of training, the right kind of support, you can get people up to speed about the moving process very quickly. And so that's been just a differentiator for us.
Yeah, I've seen that and experienced that as well. So coming from a call center background with, with pods and 1-800-PACK-RAT and kind of some alternative solutions, and then coming into work for a van line agent now, I've seen exactly what you're saying where, it's, you're expected to kind of get your training from basically starting on a truck and working your way up to being in sales and then being a manager or an ops manager or whatever. And, not a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a lot of credence maybe is given to people that don't have that experience. And I think it's frustrating for people coming into the industry, but it also cuts the industry off from new ideas and new perspectives.
Exactly.
And I think that's a widening gap. And I think that's a gap that you guys are hitting right there.
Yeah. You're not going to come out of Stanford and build a business in this industry. We've already seen that tried. It doesn't work. You got to be able to have the long-term relationships and understand the players and understand, how to, I think, just have respect for what people have done. And I've tried to convey that. It's hard to convey that to the industry, but I've been here for a lot of years. Daniela and I, we met at Pru conference, man. So, we literally are a relationship that was born in relocation. And the differentiator, yes, is customer service, but it's also over time, Ben, it's technology and building the right type of tech and having the capital to really build it. I think that when I look at on paper, what's required, the amount of money required to build the real experience behind here, there's no way for companies, just a conventional profitable business to make the kind of investments in the tech that are necessary. When you look at what skill sets are required, you've got a machine learning component to it, you've got an image recognition component to it, you've got a full call center component to it, you've got some predictive behavior stuff that goes into this. This is expensive technology, and you're competing with self-driving cars for the same engineers. So over time, it's going to take some time to build the platform that can deliver the experience, and it's going to take a lot of capital, and you got to be efficient with that.
Two questions that come off of what you said, and I'll talk about the one first. So the other piece of news that came out this week was you announced that $14 million in Series A funding. Congratulations to you guys. That's awesome. What do you do with $14 million? I mean, what's the step? How do you apply that?
Well, we've been super fortunate, first of all, that we've seen a lot of car crashes along the way of building tech in the relocation industry. Yeah. So I think the first thing we do is not repeat history. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is we have always looked at our business as, yes, raising capital is good, but being capital efficient is better, and building a profitable business is better. So we've always looked at that. I tell our team every day, investors are investing in growth. They're not investing in paying our bills. So let's build a real business from day one. And if the money comes, let's make investment. And if the money doesn't, let's make sure that we have a plan that allows us to fulfill the dream here. So I think that's first of all. But the probably quick answer is you hire amazing people like Anthony Gonzalez and Peggy Smith, and then you go after top engineering talent. So we've hit a real sweet spot with Eastern Europe, and the size of our team, we're above 230 people in Eastern Europe now, and it's a small region, so it's allowed us to develop a really good reputation. We treat our people really well. We have great benefits packages. We're doing things out there that no one else is doing. Kind of taking a little bit of that Silicon Valley mentality over there, and that means that we've been able to get a lot of great people. And it was really thrilling to me for you to mention a lot of the great qualities of the folks that you've seen on the last call. I was like, wow, Serbia should be paying me as we rebrand that country.
Seriously, you're going to start a move business to Serbia, campaign. But I mean, I've met a few of the people that have worked in your office over there. Been very impressed with them. Very educated, very articulate, very just you could tell they're smart, they're sharp people, And I was like, okay, I get it. I see the strategy there.
It didn't take long, Ben. We've brought a number of folks over, and everybody has almost the same exact reaction, which is, wow, these people got heart. You just don't see that in the U.S. in the way that we used to probably 20 years ago. Folks really, really are there. They're not jumping ship every 2 years. They believe in what we're doing. Part of what's worked for us over there, Ben, is this idea that freedom and mobility are pretty linked. And Serbia is a country that isn't today is a very limited passport and their ability to travel. So that freedom of mobility is a battle cry that a lot of those folks really see, and it's helped us to build that passion and purpose into our business.
Yeah, that's interesting because I talk to mobility professionals all the time in the United States, and people in the moving industry, especially, sometimes don't feel the why behind the business. But it's funny, it's interesting, I should say interesting, what you're talking about. It sounds like the Serbian people feel it on a deeper level maybe. And I always think that understanding that purpose really is, pairs with, employee engagement and therefore productivity and being able to do really cool things in your organization. So that's kind of like a latent benefit that I hadn't really considered,
Yeah. I mean, they say you cement your company culture when you get to about 100 people. And so in a lot of ways, once you get to the size that we are now, my ability to reach into the organization and change things is pretty limited. My ability to be able to say, yeah, that's a priority of the business, and here's a really smart person that's going to figure it out, and they're going to come back to us, and we're going to support them. You got to fail forward in this stuff. So that's just stuff that we've been working on, and there's no magic bullet either. You got to do the work. I mean. Rachel Fletcher, who just asked a question, has spent many a days in a middle seat all the way over to Eastern Europe, and a lot of folks, we kind of adapted our strategy midstream here and started actually bringing U.S.-based folks over there, and that's helped a great deal. And also, we've been able to bring some folks over here as well.
So Shyft started as a video surveys service for movers.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm getting moves from Shyft, or I'm getting the emails of the move board, right?
Yep.
And Renee, who I've worked with in a previous life, and Eric used to send them, and they have funny little blurbs and captions and stuff going on, and it's cool.
Yep.
And it's a fresh take on the load board and the tonnage list, right? I love it.
Yeah.
That's today's product. What does tomorrow's product and services look like?
Yeah, great question.
Thank
you. Let's talk about from the moving company perspective. My personal belief is you got to ride the wave that got you there, and moving companies put us on the map. A lot of them we've built some amazing relationships, like our relationship with you and with university. And so our decision-making process about what are we going to do next, or how are we going to do that, is based on how do we create mutual success and how do we create win-win. So right off the bat, when I look at one of the problems with the industry, it's around reviews, and it's around how moving companies, how they're perceived by the public. And so part of what we got to do is we have to build a network that both supports our brand Shyft, but also supports your brand university. There's always going to be a local component to moving. There will not be, this is not a winner take all industry. This is an industry that is massive, that needs that needs both a technical platform underneath of it, but also needs to support local businesses. And I think just in general, where we're at from an economic standpoint, is we're going to see the enabling factor of the technology that's been built in the last 10 to 15 years means that small businesses are going to thrive in the next 10. And so tools like Shyft are going to help them. I mean, I think that's what it is. You know, you got to keep looking at how do we create more efficiency? How do we help with getting customers in, being able to qualify them, being able to provide an easy value proposition.
So I'm reading online here, and Grable made an announcement back in October about City Switcher, powered by Shyft. I see, Rachel, is over there now, who asked the question before. Tell me about that service and how does that work and what's that story, and tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say about it is that from a very early standpoint, Ron Dunlap and Bill Grable saw that there was an opportunity to partner, and they were incredibly committed to it from the get-go. And we've just built on that partnership. And some days you have wins and you celebrate them, and some days, you don't know the answer and you'd figure it out. But I think it starts with this trust. The partnership at face value is essentially the City Switcher platform is managed by Shyft, and we manage all of the leads that go through that platform. We do a needs assessment with the customers. We then take them through a moving process if they're moving household goods, and follow the services all the way through. So that person's got an advocate all the way through the process. That's high level, I think, what it's all about.
Okay, cool. Well, it looks neat. I'm just kind of like reading the press release and stuff that they put out, and it looks kind of like a lump sum portal. But obviously with you guys, it's kind of ingenuity behind it. So cool. What else do you think that people should know about the Shyft story? Well, I got you, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that the thread here is coming through, which is this: we get a lot of conversations that are like, you're a competitor. And I think the thing to understand about that is over the last years, some players in the industry have built certain pieces of technology, and there might be some overlap with what Shyft is doing. Our approach has been, can we make this modular? So if you just want one component of it, can we support you with that one component? The answer is yes. So before you pin Shyft as a competitor, I'd have a conversation with us and understand that technology on its own is not a differentiator, and that partnership is the real differentiator. Mm-hmm. And that involves, open, honest, and vulnerable conversations, and the ability to make big, bold decisions. In Grable's case, they were able to make one, and it's early, but it looks like it's playing out really well for them. So from our standpoint, it's like there might be opportunities that you are thinking about in your organization and thinking about how do we capitalize them. There might be places where you just need a solution or need a partner to work on a gnarly problem. So we're there in both those cases, and I think we really at this moment are looking to take what we've done and what we've built and continue to build on it.
Well, that's a good segue into a couple of questions we have here. One from Paula Kupka. Are you from Crown Relocation? Are you considering expanding into other virtual services?
Other virtual services? So not at the moment. I think we've got our hands full with what we're doing. And I'll say, when you look at the Move Guides Topia example of expanding very rapidly, very early on before they had their feet underneath them, I think I learned a tremendous amount from that example. And so although, maybe the path to get to where we are was like a little bit of jerking the wheel from side to side to find that product market fit, what you're going to see from us for the future is really staying where we are and delivering on the promise we've made to folks. And I know that was maybe boring, but that's what we got to do. It's still a very complex transaction. We still see a lot of lump sums that are coming in that don't want any services, or they say they don't want any services. So there's quite a bit of work to figure out what products are really going to stick with them. This is not, you know, I like to say the American dream is kind of what relocation got built off of, but the American dream is changing, and yet the products that we offer them are kind of the same. So how do we innovate on that product suite, and how do we find the real fit here? Because I think if you find that, the market might open up, and there might be a larger opportunity, a larger pie.
Well, that's a interesting. You know, you talk about product suite. Lori Murphy, does Alex think that Shyft can replicate the same success they are having on the moving side to other areas of mobility and relocation? If so, where and what's next?
Yeah. So one thing you're not going to get from me is doing stuff that I don't know about. So I think that I understand the gist of the question. Like, are we going to go into housing? Are we going to go into DSP services? Like, are we going to start branching out and becoming an RMC? No, no. I think
a lot of people would like think, okay, cool. So they went from this adding offering a service to moving companies to then say, okay, well, we're gonna, book moves, say, okay, well, what other services are they going to book? And once you have that customer there in front of you in your portal and in your workflow and the purse strings and all that stuff, okay, well, how do you monetize them and offer them DSP or offer them, whatever, right? Yeah.
So we're looking for partners for those solutions. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring data about usage and behavior and what we see and try to help partners become better at the software services they offer. That's our job. In moving, what might be confusing is that our approach to moving was slightly different because we had to build all these customized tools to make it work together because it was crazy fragmented. It's very local. There was all these new products and services being offered, containerization, freight trailers, do-it-yourself kind of moves. And so for moving, we really had to build the whole, from soup to nuts kind of approach. On the other vertical, and we also knew about that. So that was where our expertise came from. For the other verticals that you'll see, and we do believe customers want to buy these other pieces, our approach is partner driven. So that's why I'm beating the drum on, come talk to us. Hey, let's see what you guys are seeing. We released a white paper and then just revamped it on a bunch of data that we've seen from collecting from customers. But a lot of that stuff we expect it to be partner driven. And it's the partners that want to, again, tap into some of these markets which they have been struggling with that we feel like we can add value.
Okay, I have another question that was texted to me. Are you going to the AMSA conference?
Absolutely.
All right. Is part of that $14 million going to be allocated towards a bangin' Shyft party?
Oh, really? Really?
I'm just, hey, actually, I got another question along the same lines. In lieu of a bang-in Shyft party, would you like to sponsor the 40 Below party? We could use a title sponsor.
Get at me after the thing. But what I will say is that last Shyft party was probably paid for by this round of funding. So we're still paying it. We're still paying it off. Clase Azul isn't cheap.
If it takes, if a party didn't take a quarter to pay off, it wasn't any good.
It wasn't a real point, but that was a good party. So I hope you're all going to come out to the next one. We're working on.
Sure. Make sure I get the info on that.
You got it.
Lori Murphy, thanks a lot. Very insightful. Adam Lowy says it's for a great cause. It does go to benefit Move for Hunger, by the way, that title sponsorship.
He is a pusher. He is a pusher.
He sure is.
He's the most profitable nonprofit I ever met.
Fed 3 million people last year, by the way. So I mean, there's something to that. Roy Ramirez, very informative. So, well, hey man, we've spent a lot of time here, Alex. This is great. Been really gracious with your time. We've had 75 plus people off and on. Ton of people logged in to see this, so it's obviously very topical and relevant right now. What you guys are doing is really exciting. As someone that really enjoys innovation in the moving industry, obviously been paying very close attention to what you guys are doing. I think it's great. I'm excited to see what you do next. I really, I love Peggy. So I think that was, tremendous, talent acquisition on your part there. So tell Daniela I said hello, and thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot, Ben. And thanks to everyone who came out and watched today. And yeah, we'll see you at AMSA. ERC's right around the corner. I'm sure it's going to be pretty live with Peggy coming back on the Shyft side of things, but we're looking forward to it. And wishing everyone to have a happy and healthy 2020.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
For sure. Take care. Thanks, man.
Right, thanks, Ben. Bye-bye.